Elias never expected that a simple delivery mission would bring him into the center of alien royalty. He was a human explorer who worked as a freelance navigator, traveling between distant systems where humans were still seen as newcomers. Many alien species had heard stories about humanity, but few had actually met one. Some believed humans were reckless. Others thought they were brave beyond reason. Elias did not care much about reputation. He simply enjoyed seeing new worlds and learning new cultures. His small ship drifted through the quiet blue glow of hyperspace when he received a priority signal. At first, he assumed it was a distress call or navigation warning, but instead, it was an official invitation. The message came from a royal convoy belonging to one of the most powerful civilizations in the region. Days earlier, Elias had unknowingly helped them by diverting a dangerous energy storm away from their path using his ship's experimental engine. He had thought little of it at the time, but apparently the royal family had noticed. The invitation surprised him. He was asked to attend a royal wedding as an honored guest. Elias stared at the message for a long time, wondering if it was a mistake. Humans were rarely invited into such events, especially when politics were involved. Still, curiosity pulled him forward. He adjusted his course and followed the coordinates. The alien world came into view slowly, glowing with soft colors that shifted like waves across the surface. Giant structures rose from the land like living sculptures, shaped by advanced technology and ancient traditions. Ships from many different civilizations filled the skies, each carrying important guests. Elias felt small among them, but he also felt proud. A human had been invited here, and that meant something. When his ship landed, royal attendants greeted him politely but cautiously. Their eyes lingered on him, studying every movement. He had experienced that look many times before. Humans were still new to the galactic stage, and people were unsure whether to trust them. Elias smiled calmly and followed their instructions without complaint. Inside the palace, everything felt larger than life. Walls shimmered with colors that reacted to movement, and music filled the air without visible instruments. Guests wore elegant garments that reflected their cultures. Elias kept his clothing simple, choosing comfort over display, but he noticed several nobles whispering as he passed. Some looked curious. Others looked skeptical. He ignored the stares and focused on observing quietly. That had always been his strength. Humans survived by adapting, by watching and learning quickly. He noticed how guards positioned themselves around key figures, how certain nobles avoided each other, and how tension hid behind polite smiles. When he first saw Princess Lyra, he immediately sensed something unusual. She stood beside the groom during pre-ceremony greetings, wearing ceremonial attire that shimmered with shifting patterns. She looked strong and composed, but her eyes revealed something deeper, a hint of worry, maybe even sadness. Elias told himself he was imagining things. It was not his place to judge royal emotions. Still, he could not ignore the feeling that something was wrong. During the welcoming banquet, several guests approached him, curious about humanity. Some asked respectful questions about Earth and human culture. Others tested him with subtle challenges, trying to see how he reacted under pressure. Elias answered honestly and used humor whenever possible. Slowly, the atmosphere around him softened. People began to relax in his presence. One elderly diplomat told him that humans were known for their unpredictable choices. Elias laughed and said that unpredictability sometimes meant freedom. The diplomat seemed thoughtful after that. As the ceremony approached, the palace grew more serious. Security increased and certain areas were closed. Elias noticed groups of nobles arguing quietly in corners. The energy of celebration felt mixed with something darker. The wedding ritual began at sunset, when the sky turned deep gold. Guests gathered around a grand platform floating above a lake of light. The bride and groom stood together as ancient words echoed through the air. The ritual was not just about marriage. It symbolized unity between powerful families and political alliances. Elias watched respectfully, fascinated by the beauty of the tradition. He admired how alien cultures expressed emotion differently, yet shared similar hopes for connection. Then he saw Princess Lyra glance toward the crowd. For a brief moment, her eyes met his. There was fear there. Before he could understand why, the platform shook violently. Lights flickered, and a sharp sound echoed through the ceremony. Guests gasped as energy barriers collapsed. Panic spread quickly. Elias did not think. Human instinct took over. He moved toward the nearest civilians, guiding them away from danger while scanning for threats. Training from years of survival in unpredictable environments helped him stay calm. A sudden explosion forced the princess backward. Without hesitation, Elias ran forward and caught her before she fell from the unstable platform. He shielded her as debris scattered around them. Guards rushed in, weapons ready, but confusion slowed their response. Elias focused only on keeping people safe. He helped injured guests move away and remained beside Lyra until security stabilized the area. Silence followed the chaos. Royal officials began arguing immediately, their voices tense. Ancient laws were mentioned, and many eyes turned toward Elias. He did not understand at first, but he felt the weight of attention pressing down on him. The king himself approached, studying him carefully. Whispers spread across the crowd. Some looked shocked, others curious. The interrupted ritual had triggered something unexpected. According to old tradition, the one who protected the princess during a sacred ceremony became spiritually connected to her fate. Elias felt his heart race as realization slowly formed. He had come as a guest. Now he might be bound to the royal family forever. And somewhere deep inside, he sensed that this was only the beginning of a much larger story. The silence after the ruined ceremony felt heavier than the chaos itself. Guests whispered in small groups, while royal guards secured every entrance. Elias stood near the edge of the ceremonial hall, unsure where he was supposed to go or what he was supposed to do next. He had only reacted on instinct, helping people the way any human might when danger appeared. But now it seemed that his actions had placed him inside something far larger than he could understand. Princess Lyra stood beside him, surrounded by advisors who spoke rapidly in their native language. Their voices carried tension, and Elias sensed disagreement among them. Some looked toward him with curiosity, others with clear concern. He realized that whatever ancient law had been mentioned earlier was not something small or symbolic. It had real consequences. A tall royal officer approached and bowed slightly toward Lyra before turning to Elias. "The council requests your presence," the officer said in careful, basic galactic language. Elias nodded slowly. He followed them through wide corridors that seemed quieter than before. Servants moved quickly, but avoided eye contact, and guards watched him closely. He did not feel like a prisoner, but he also did not feel free. Inside the council chamber, a circle of elders waited. Their expressions ranged from calm to openly suspicious. The king himself sat at the center, silent but observant. Elias felt the weight of their attention as he stepped forward. One of the elders spoke first. "Human, you intervened during a sacred ritual and protected the princess during the moment of binding. According to our oldest laws, this action has meaning beyond simple heroism."
Elias took a breath. "I didn't know about any law.
"I only helped because people were in danger." Murmurs spread around the chamber. Another elder nodded slightly, as if expecting that answer. The king finally spoke, his voice steady. "Intent does not erase tradition, however. Your honesty is noted." They began asking questions about what Elias had seen before the attack. He explained about the strange tension he noticed, the nervous movements among certain nobles, and the sudden collapse of the energy field. Several council members exchanged serious looks. Princess Lyra stepped forward. "He saved lives," she said calmly. "Without him, the damage would have been worse." He had only spoken to her briefly before the chaos, yet she defended him without hesitation. After long discussion, the council reached a temporary decision. Elias would remain under royal protection until the investigation finished. He would not be allowed to leave the planet yet, both for his safety and because of the legal implications of the interrupted ritual. Elias accepted the decision quietly. He knew arguing would change nothing. Still, uncertainty filled his thoughts. He had planned to attend a celebration and then continue his travels. Now he was part of a political storm. Later, Lyra requested to speak with him privately in one of the palace gardens. The garden felt peaceful compared to the tense halls, filled with tall, glowing plants and soft-flowing water. "You handled yourself well," she said.
"I didn't feel calm," Elias admitted with a small smile. "Humans just move when things go wrong."
"That is something I have heard about your species. You act before fear stops you." He shrugged slightly. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. For the first time since the ceremony, she looked less like a princess and more like a young woman carrying heavy responsibility. She explained that her arranged marriage had been part of a political alliance meant to prevent conflict between powerful factions. The attack had not only ruined the ceremony, but also weakened trust between those groups. "And now," she said quietly, "ancient law says you are tied to me." Elias looked uncomfortable. "I don't want to cause problems for you or your people." "You did not cause this," she replied. "You only revealed something that was already unstable." Over the next few days, Elias remained inside the palace. Advisors questioned him repeatedly, and security escorts followed him everywhere. Some nobles greeted him politely, curious about the human who had changed royal tradition. Others ignored him completely, clearly unhappy about his presence. Despite the pressure, Elias tried to stay true to himself. He asked questions about their culture and listened more than he spoke. Slowly, a few palace staff began to treat him less like a strange outsider and more like a guest. Meanwhile, the investigation uncovered troubling signs. Evidence suggested that the attack had been carefully planned, not by outsiders, but by someone familiar with palace security. This realization shocked many officials. Lyra invited Elias to observe diplomatic meetings, partly because the law now considered him her ceremonial protector. He watched how negotiations unfolded, noticing that many leaders relied heavily on strict traditions. When discussions became tense, Elias sometimes offered simple, human perspectives that surprised them. One moment stood out when a disagreement threatened to end an important alliance discussion. Elias quietly suggested focusing on shared goals instead of past grievances. The room fell silent at first, but then one diplomat laughed softly and admitted that perhaps a fresh perspective was needed. Word began to spread that the human was not only brave, but also thoughtful. However, not everyone appreciated this change. Some nobles feared that allowing a human into royal affairs would weaken their traditions. Rumors circulated that Elias represented unwanted influence. Late one evening, a security alert forced the palace into lockdown. An unknown figure attempted to access restricted areas. Although the intruder escaped, investigators found clues suggesting involvement from high-ranking individuals. Tension rose again. Elias felt the weight of suspicion around him. Even though he knew he was innocent, he understood that fear often needed a target. During another private conversation, Lyra admitted that she never wanted a life controlled by ancient expectations. She wanted to lead her people toward cooperation with other species, including humans. Elias listened carefully, realizing that her strength came not from power, but from determination to change things slowly. Their conversations became more natural over time. They shared stories about their worlds, their struggles, and their hopes. Trust grew between them, not from romance, but from mutual respect. One morning, the council made a surprising announcement. Until the attackers were found, Elias would officially serve as Lyra's protector during public appearances. This decision followed ancient law, but also carried political meaning. It showed that the royal family accepted him publicly. The announcement shocked the galaxy. News channels across different systems discussed the human connected to alien royalty. Some praised the symbol of unity, others criticized it as reckless. Standing beside Lyra during the first public appearance felt unreal to Elias. Crowds watched with curiosity and excitement. He stood calmly, aware that every movement mattered. As the event ended, he realized something important. He had arrived as an outsider, unsure of his place. Now he was becoming part of something much bigger. Not just a royal story, but a moment that could shape relationships between entire civilizations. And somewhere among the shadows of the palace, those who feared change were preparing their next move. Life inside the palace changed after the public announcement. Elias was no longer just a guest who had helped during a crisis. Now he walked beside Princess Lyra during official events, watched by guards, advisors, and countless curious eyes. Every step he took felt important, and he knew that one wrong action could cause problems not only for him, but for the princess as well. At first he felt uncomfortable wearing the ceremonial clothing given to him. The fabric shifted slightly with his movement, adjusting itself to fit his human body. Several attendants tried to teach him proper posture and royal etiquette. Elias listened carefully, but sometimes he forgot small details, which caused quiet amusement among the staff. Even Lyra laughed once when he used the wrong greeting gesture during a formal introduction. "You are trying," she told him later, her voice calm. "That matters more than perfection." Elias nodded. Humans learn by doing. We make mistakes first, then improve. Slowly, the palace atmosphere around him began to change. Some nobles who had avoided him before started greeting him politely. Others still watched him with suspicion, but he sensed that their opinions were shifting. News of his actions during the ceremony and his calm behavior afterward had spread far beyond the palace. Training became part of his daily routine. Royal instructors taught him about alien combat styles, diplomatic signals, and cultural customs that were considered sacred. Elias struggled at first because many traditions followed strict patterns. Humans, by nature, often preferred flexible solutions. One instructor grew frustrated when Elias suggested a different approach to a defensive maneuver. "That is not how it has been done for centuries," the instructor said sharply. Elias paused and then demonstrated his idea again, showing how unpredictability could confuse an opponent. The instructor watched closely this time and slowly nodded. "It is unconventional," he admitted, "but effective." Word began to spread that the human brought new ideas. Some younger guards started practicing his methods, blending tradition with human adaptability. Older nobles saw this as dangerous change, while others saw it as evolution. Meanwhile, the investigation into the attack continued. Evidence pointed toward internal betrayal, but the conspirators remained hidden. Elias noticed increased tension during council meetings. Lyra listened carefully to every argument, often staying silent until the right moment to speak. He admired her patience and intelligence. One evening, they walked together along a balcony overlooking the glowing city below. Ships moved like silent stars across the sky. "Do you regret coming here?" Lyra asked suddenly. Elias thought for a moment. "I didn't plan any of this, but regret? No. Humans believe that unexpected paths often lead to important change." She smiled slightly. "Your species is strange. You accept chaos as opportunity." "Maybe because our history is full of chaos," he said quietly. Their conversations grew deeper as trust formed between them. They spoke about leadership, fear, and the weight of expectation. Lyra admitted that she had always felt trapped by tradition, while Elias shared stories of humans exploring unknown space despite overwhelming odds. During a diplomatic summit, tension reached a new level. Representatives from multiple worlds gathered to discuss the failed wedding alliance and the risk of conflict. Elias stood behind Lyra as her protector, observing quietly. Halfway through the meeting, Alarms sounded. A group of attackers disguised as servants attempted to strike several diplomats at once. Chaos erupted as guards rushed forward. Elias reacted instantly, guiding Lyra toward cover while helping nearby delegates escape. His quick thinking prevented panic from spreading further. One attacker tried to escape through a side corridor. Elias pursued carefully, using skills he had learned during years of travel. Instead of rushing blindly, he predicted the attacker's path and blocked the exit. Guards arrived moments later to capture the intruder. The incident changed everything. Captured evidence revealed that certain nobles opposed to interspecies cooperation were behind the attacks. They believed that allowing humans to gain influence would weaken their cultural purity. The conspiracy ran deeper than anyone expected. Public opinion shifted rapidly. Many citizens began to view Elias not as an outsider, but as a protector who risked himself for their safety. Messages of support appeared across communication networks. However, success also increased danger. Those who feared change became more desperate. The king summoned Elias and Lyra to a private meeting. His expression showed both pride and concern. "You have become a symbol," he told Elias. "Symbols inspire hope, but they also attract enemies." Elias nodded. "I understand. On Earth, people who represent change often face resistance." The king studied him carefully.
"You speak like someone who has seen much. Humans grow by facing challenges," Elias replied simply. After the meeting, Lyra seemed thoughtful.
"My father rarely trusts outsiders," she said. "Yet he listens to you." Elias felt surprised by that. "I only speak honestly." "That is rare here," she admitted. Days passed, filled with training and planning. The council prepared for a final gathering where the truth about the conspiracy would be revealed publicly. Security tightened across the palace. Late at night, Elias walked alone through a quiet corridor when he sensed movement behind him. He turned just in time to avoid a hidden attacker. Instead of fighting aggressively, he focused on defense, creating space until guards arrived. The captured attacker refused to speak, but the message was clear. The conspirators were becoming desperate. Despite the danger, Elias remained calm. He reminded himself that humans survived by staying focused during uncertainty. He also knew that his actions now represented more than himself. They represented humanity's place among the stars. Lyra noticed the pressure he carried. "You do not have to face this alone," she told him. "And neither do you," he replied. Their partnership grew stronger, built on mutual respect and shared responsibility. Neither of them treated the ancient binding law as a burden anymore. Instead, they saw it as an opportunity to create something new. As the day of the final gathering approached, tension filled the air like a storm waiting to break. Allies prepared quietly, while hidden enemies searched for one last chance to seize power. Standing beside Lyra before the ceremony, Elias felt a deep sense of purpose. He had arrived as a traveler with no expectations. Now he stood at the center of a moment that could shape the future of multiple civilizations, and he knew that whatever happened next, humanity would be judged not by fear, but by the choices he made. The day of the final gathering arrived with a quiet tension that everyone could feel. The palace looked more beautiful than ever, filled with lights and decorations meant to show strength and unity. But beneath the beauty, there was caution. Guards stood at every entrance, watching carefully. Diplomats from many worlds filled the great hall, their voices low as they waited for the ceremony to begin. Elias stood beside Princess Lyra, near the entrance to the main platform. He wore ceremonial clothing again, but this time, it felt less strange. Over the past days, he had grown used to the role he now carried. He was no longer just a visitor from Earth. He was a protector, a symbol, and someone many people were watching closely. Lyra looked calm, but Elias could sense her focus. She had prepared for this moment carefully. Today would decide whether her world moved toward unity or fell deeper into division. The king entered the hall, and the crowd grew silent. His presence carried authority, but also a quiet sadness, as if he understood how close they had come to losing everything. The council gathered around him while the ceremony began with traditional music echoing softly across the room. Elias scanned the crowd carefully. Human instinct told him that danger often appeared when people felt safest. He noticed certain nobles standing farther apart from others, their movements too controlled. He remembered the conspirators' desire to stop change, and he knew they would not give up easily. As the king began to speak about unity and truth, the atmosphere shifted. Some faces looked relieved, others tense. Lyra stepped forward when her father finished, her voice clear as she addressed the gathering. She spoke about trust between cultures, about learning from difference instead of fearing it. She also spoke about responsibility, how leaders must protect their people not only from enemies outside, but from fear inside their own hearts. Elias watched her with admiration. She no longer looked like someone forced into tradition. She looked like someone shaping it. Just as the ceremony reached its central moment, a loud sound echoed from above. Lights flickered. Several figures stepped forward from the crowd, revealing themselves as members of the conspiracy. Gasps spread through the hall. One of them spoke loudly, accusing the royal family of abandoning ancient values. He pointed toward Elias. "You would place your future in the hands of an outsider," he said, "a human who does not understand our ways." Murmurs rose among the guests. Elias remained calm. He had expected something like this. Instead of reacting with anger, he focused on understanding the situation. Humans had learned long ago that emotional control often prevented chaos from growing. The conspirators activated hidden devices, attempting to seize control of security systems. Guards moved quickly, but confusion spread as different factions tried to react at once. Elias stepped forward slightly, positioning himself between Lyra and the approaching figures. He raised his hands slowly, not in threat, but in steady confidence.
"You don't have to do this,"
he said quietly. Some laughed at him, but others hesitated. His calm presence confused them. They had expected fear or aggression. The leader of the conspirators tried to provoke him, hoping for a violent reaction that would justify their claims. Instead, Elias spoke again, his voice steady. "Change does not erase tradition," he said. "It gives it new life." His words reached more people than he expected. Several nobles looked uncertain, their loyalty shaken by the confrontation. Meanwhile, Lyra stepped beside him instead of behind him. Her voice carried strength. "This is not about replacing our culture," she said. "It is about growing stronger together." The conspirators realized they were losing control of the narrative. Desperation filled their movements as they attempted to trigger another disruption. Elias noticed one device beginning to overload near the platform. Without hesitation, he moved toward it, using knowledge from his engineering background to stabilize the energy flow. Sparks flashed, but he stayed focused until the danger passed. The crowd watched in silence. A human outsider had protected their sacred space once again. Guards finally secured the conspirators. Instead of punishing them publicly, the king ordered a formal investigation showing that justice would follow law rather than revenge. This decision surprised many but also restored a sense of order. After the chaos ended, the ceremony continued. The interruption transformed the event into something more powerful. It was no longer about a wedding alliance, but about the future direction of their civilization. The king addressed Elias directly in front of everyone. "You came here as a guest," he said. "Yet your actions have protected our people and shown courage beyond expectation. Our traditions speak of bonds formed through shared purpose. Today we must decide what that bond means." Elias felt every eye in the hall turn toward him. He had never wanted power or attention. He only wanted to help. I did what any human would try to do, he said honestly. Protect people. Help when needed. His simple words carried weight because they were sincere. The king nodded slowly. Perhaps that is why humanity has a place among us. Lyra then stepped forward, her expression warm but strong. The ancient law does not force destiny, she said.
It offers a path, and that path should be chosen freely.
She turned to Elias, giving him a choice instead of obligation. For a moment he thought about returning to his old life, traveling alone between stars. But he also remembered everything he had learned here, the friendships, the challenges, and the possibility of building bridges between cultures. I choose to stay, he said finally. Not because of law, but because I believe we can build something better together. A hall filled with quiet approval that slowly grew into strong applause. Many saw the decision as a symbol of unity between species. In the days that followed, the palace changed. Diplomats began new discussions about cooperation with humanity. Training programs combined traditional methods with human adaptability. Citizens spoke openly about how fear had nearly divided them and how courage had helped them move forward. Elias continued learning, never pretending to know everything. That humility made others trust him more. Lyra worked beside him as a leader determined to guide her people toward a future where difference was strength. Their relationship grew slowly, based on partnership rather than expectation. They respected each other's choices and understood that true bonds formed through shared challenges. The story of the ruined wedding transformed into a legend about unity. People remembered how a human arrived as a stranger and became a bridge between worlds. Standing on a balcony one evening, Elias watched ships travel across the sky. He felt peace in a way he had never experienced before. Humanity's place in the galaxy was still new, still uncertain. But he knew one thing clearly. Sometimes the greatest journeys began with unexpected invitations and the courage to say yes.